We often forget about Henry's two other sisters. He had an older sister Margaret and a younger sister Mary. And in this video we will be transforming his older sister Margaret's portraits to see how she might have looked in real life using my technology and Photoshop skills, as well as we are going to be diving into her tragic story a bit to see more about what her deal was. So let's get started. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more historical recreations and let me know in the comments who you want to see in real life. Margaret Tudor was Henry's older sister, born in 1489. 2 years before Henry was born. Her father was also King Henry VII of England, who just founded the Tudor Dynasty, and her granddaughter was Mary Queen of Scots. She got married in 1503. She was 14, and her husband, King James IV of Scotland, was 30. Her husband wanted to end 200 years of warfare with Scotland and England, and his marriage with Henry's daughter did just that. He was a Renaissance king and was all about stability and wanting to flourish the arts and culture within Scotland. Together the couple had 6 children, but only one would survive into adulthood, James V, Mary Queen of Scots' father. In 1513, her husband James died in battle. He was 40, she was 24. So their 17-month-old son James V became king, and Margaret became regent. She could stay regent as long as she remained a widow. And this is kind of understandable because Margaret was queen by marriage, not by blood. So whoever she married next would be even more of a stranger to the crown. In other words, why would you let your stepfather be in charge of the family heirlooms? Scotland wasn't too comfortable with a woman regent, so they wanted the next male heir, the Duke of Albany, James's first cousin once removed. He was pro-French, by the way, where Scotland was ancient allies with France, but France and England were hostile, so that stirred things up a bit. Margaret was very proud of her English heritage and was initially a peacemaker, but her emotions eventually took the better of her, and she got married to the Earl of Angus. This forfeited her right as regent according to James's will. Now the Duke became the regent of Scotland. Margaret felt her personal safety was threatened in Scotland, and so she fled without her husband because the Earl would have lost all his Scottish power and riches if he abandoned it. She reluctantly left her 2 sons, James and Alex, with the Duke because taking them might lose their claim to the crown. She was also pregnant with the Earl of Angus's child. She wasn't permitted to go to her brother King Henry VIII, but she escaped to England on belief that she was headed to another Scottish castle to give birth. On her way to her brother, she ends up giving birth to a daughter, Lady Margaret Douglas, the mother of Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. His name sounds familiar because we learn in my recreation of Mary Queen of Scots that she married Lord Darnley. And together the two have the next King James VI, the one who inherits the English crown after Queen Elizabeth I. So Mary Queen of Scots and Lord Darnley share the same grandmother. Margaret Tudor now learns that her youngest son Alex just died, so she continues to London and is regarded well in Henry VIII's court. She stays there for the year of 1517 and then she heads back to Scotland. She was 28. In a long story cut short, her husband the Earl greets her, but she finds out that he was having an affair with another woman while she was in England. What upsets her more, though, is that the Earl was using her money to live on with his mistress. She wants an annulment and petitions Henry to help her. Henry was flabbergasted because this was before he even came up with the idea of annulling Catherine of Aragon. Believe it or not, Henry before his break from the church was quite conservative and opposed divorce. Ironic, isn't it? Upset, Margaret now sides more with the French and the Duke, and her husband leaves England and takes sides with Henry. James's regency ended in 1524. He was 12 and Margaret was 35. Margaret now jumps the gun and gently pushes the Duke back to France. He doesn't push back and he goes quietly. The worst was yet to come though, because now Margaret, who was finally able to be a mother and counsel to James, began relations with a Lord Avondale, Her estranged husband, the Earl, was a power-hungry man and wanted power in the council of James, who still needed guidance because he was still a kid. So he comes back from England with a group of armed men, and you can imagine the two like a divorcing couple. She's yelling through her window of her castle to go away, and he's yelling back his privileges to be part of James's council as her husband. So she aims some cannons at him and says, "Leave now." He leaves for now, but with pressure from the council members, she bends and allows the Earl to join the group. This was a huge mistake on her part because the Earl takes full control of James, and this is how James starts despising the English. Margaret now is obsessed with divorce and wants the Earl gone. Despite removing the Duke, they correspond warmly, and he helps her petition the annulment to the Pope with his good relations with Rome. The Pope grants the annulment. With good news, she shortly marries her lover Lord Avondale in 1528. Finally, 4 years later in 1528, with the divorce, James freed himself from the clutches of the Earl and eventually cast his mother aside too, refusing any input from her. Margaret's marriage with Lord Avondale did begin to go sour, as he turned out to be just like the Earl, a womanizer who just wants her riches. Unhappy, she tries to flee her husband and Scotland for her brother, but fails. As so often in Margaret's life, tragedy and unhappiness were closely pursued by intrigue and farce. She died in 1541, aged 51, from palsy, related to a severe stroke, unable to escape her late husband, and unable to escape to her brother. And that's a little bit about Margaret Tudor. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more historical recreations, and let me know in the comments who you want to see in real life, and I will see you in the next one.